Ladies and gentlemen, you are now entering the Decent Christian Talk podcast. Enjoy.
Decent Christian Talk, episode number 49. First episode of October. We are officially in fall. The temperatures are cooling down. Football weather is out there. For those of you that are baseball fans, this is probably your favorite time of year with the postseason kicking up. Got hockey starting underway. College basketball will be here before you know it. Christmas shopping, that's already started. That's got to be a lot of fun for some of you. It's hard to believe that this year is already winding down. The holidays will be here before we know it. It's crazy how fast this year has gone. Hey, this is where we are. It's October. This is episode number 49. We got a great episode for you today. We got an interview with a band called Young Oceans. This is a band that's they're not brand new. They've had a couple projects, but they might be new to you. So this is going to be something that you might find worth checking out as you listen. But before we get to that, as you may know, we have episode number 50 coming up next. And we are going to announce who our special guest will be at the very end of this episode. So make sure you check that out. It's going to be a very fun podcast. I can promise you that. And hey, like we talked about on the first show, we got a new Patreon page. You can check that out at patreon.com/Decent Christian Talk. This will give you a chance to become part of our podcast team by supporting us financially. This is a way that you can be involved and support something that hopefully you like to listen to. One thing that we've really enjoyed over the years is giving a band like Young Oceans a platform to be heard by a new audience that may have not ever heard them before. And, we definitely have fun with guys like Toby Mac, and we have fun with, people that you know and have heard of, but we also have just as much fun with artists that you may not have heard of before. And I really just hope that some of you have discovered new artists by listening to this show. And hey, if you really believe in this show and believe in what we do, we just really encourage you to give us some support. For as low as $1 a month, you can join our team. We've already gotten a couple supporters. We'd like to thank Jody Smith and Garrett Godfried for supporting us. And there's a couple of other ways that you can support us by going on DecentChristianTalk.com, our homepage. There's a donate button on the right-hand side of the page if you get on your laptop and check that out. That would definitely help us as well. Once again, that's patreon.com/Decent Christian Talk if you want to join our team through Patreon. And if you want to donate a one-time pledge, you can check out DecentChristianTalk.com and check out the donate button on there. We just really appreciate if you could consider joining us, and it'd be greatly helped as it'll help cover some of our costs. But yeah, we're just going to head right into it. Hey, Young Oceans is a band that I've listened to over the years. We kind of touched upon this in the interview. They're a band that I kind of discovered through a website called noisetrade.com. Noisetrade.com is a way that artists can get out there and kind of share their music with the world. They offer it as a free legal download, and you have the option to donate money to them through that website. And I've discovered a lot of artists on Noise Trade over the years, but one of my favorites has been Young Oceans. They're a worship band. They have had some songs that other artists such as Plum has covered. But they just have some really, really powerful songs. They kind of had a really cool EP of sorts last year called Voices Volume 1, where some other artists helped recreate some of their tracks, such as All Sons and Daughters and Leland and a couple others that you may have heard of. But yeah, I mean, these guys are definitely worth checking out. They currently have, speaking of crowdfunding, they currently have a crowdfunding campaign going on right now on pledgemusic.com where you can help fund their next record. And there's different ways that you can get involved through there. And you can go check that out at pledgemusic.com. Again, the band is Young Oceans. And we are going to head right into the interview right now without further ado. Here's my interview with Young Oceans.
All right, hit that horn, babe. Let's dance.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, just kind of your background with music. What did you grow up listening to, and how did that influence you, and all that?
Mostly in the U.S., but I moved a lot because of my dad's work. My dad worked for Billy Graham, the evangelist, for 25 years, and he took the job the year I was born. And so we spent a lot of time, my family, my sisters and I have 3 sisters, in different cities, and sometimes overseas. We lived in Europe a few times and Canada a few times. And so I grew up with a pretty varied background of culture and church and music. But one of the things musically that was always kind of a steady kind of thread was my dad's music. He listened to maybe kind of classic stuff from the 60s and 70s. His favorite thing was Bob Dylan and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all that type of stuff. So we kind of thought that was our music growing up as well.
So how did you get from that to getting into music and playing yourself?
Well, I was just a fan for most of my childhood and even up to middle school and high school. I had taken some piano lessons as a kid, played some band instruments in school, but I wasn't, for some reason it just never occurred to me that you could, take up a guitar and really create something. I just hadn't made that connection. I was a little, I don't know, it seemed too good to be true. And actually my high school English teacher, my junior year, who taught me, I had him for lots of classes in high school. His name was Tom Williams. And he taught me how to write, basically, and he taught me how to write poetry and prose. And he was a guitar player himself, and one day he saw me in the back of his classroom kind of just holding his guitar, and he asked me if I'd like to play that. And I kind of was shocked, and I said, well, how can I do that? Can I? And he actually gave me lessons all through my junior year. And that was my start on guitar. I was a little late. I was 17. And he encouraged me right off the bat to write music, write songs as I was even learning. So you can imagine how bad those early songs were. But for me, music has always been about an extension of writing. It was just a more colorful way to write poetry. So that was kind of my entrance into the musicality of it.
Okay, so you eventually started Young Oceans. What's kind of the brief background on starting the band and what got you to where you are now?
Well, I've been a worship leader at a church here in New York called Trinity Grace for about 8 years or so. And one of the things that we were all really passionate about, myself and the other musicians and worship leaders, was finding songs among our own community, among our own writers, that would be an expression for our church community to sing, to put into our church services and our liturgies. And I took that really seriously and spent a lot of time trying to write songs for our community. And we were able to make 2 records with Trinity Grace. And then through just a crazy series of events, had an opportunity to record those songs again. But it was someone had come along and basically invited me to take part in like a real left of center art project, and was encouraging me to record those very songs that we had been singing in church, which were written, to be pretty clear and hymn-like. And so Young Ocean started without a name. It was really just a collection of songs that we wanted to record in an odd way. It seemed really odd at the time. Now it doesn't seem that odd. But we sort of purposely deconstructed these church songs just as an experiment, just as an audio experiment, and worked with a bunch of great players in New York that I love and a producer that I love who I'd worked with before on other projects. And it wasn't until we got done where we got our mixes and we thought, well, no one's going to like this and no one's going to care about this. Maybe it's too weird. And we kind of started to leak it out there just to some friends, and to our surprise, people seemed to resonate with it. A certain person seemed to resonate with it, and so we gave it a name, and we keep on going.
How did your relationship with Noise Trade, what did that do for you, kind of as a band starting out?
Great question. Yeah, Noise Trade, I think, in an indie, on an indie rock level, it was a huge deal for us. We had a few friends in the Christian music world that kind of chatted about it right away after we put the album out up online. And the Noise Trade thing at that time was just kind of working for a certain demographic. I'm not even sure exactly what. But within a month, we had 25,000 people who had gone and grabbed the sampler off of Noise Trade. So it was crazy.
That's crazy, because that's artists are always trying to kind of fighting against giving away music, but that's kind of a cool way to get your music out, I guess.
Oh, it was amazing. I'm not sure if people are, it was in the States at least. That was 5 years ago, and it's different now with Spotify. It seems to be changing every season, but for a minute there, Noise Trade was really cruising, and we were so grateful for that exposure, and just to get it into people's hands is priceless.
So you've got a new project coming out, and you're working on a platform called Pledge Music. What was the reasoning for going on to Pledge Music, and what are some ways that people can connect on there and find reasons to give?
Yeah, well, this is our 4th studio album. We have one compilation record called Voices, but this is our 4th album with the band up here in New York, and so far to date, we've kind of been in the shadows. I can't really explain exactly why that felt right, but we felt that it's just meant to kind of be a quiet kind of recording project that just sort of discreetly puts music out, and that's about it. But lately, this past year, I've felt like it's maybe time to allow people to sort of see the people behind the project a little bit and connect a little bit more with the story. And I've seen new artists use Pledge Music and have just a great chance at getting people involved in hearing the story for the first time. But it's also something that really established artists use as a way to just spread the word. And it's one thing. It's just kind of fun. It's fun to get people involved before the music comes out, and have them play a part in the arc. So we've had a great response so far. It's been up for a couple weeks, and honestly, we just want it to be kind of a community event this time around.
I saw where a lot of the inspiration in this project is inspired by the Eucharist. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I grew up in a Protestant tradition, and I had this type of arc in my childhood where I can't remember the exact point along the line where I learned certain things about Christianity or the church. They just kind of felt like they were always there. And for some reason, if it was taught to me or sort of handed to me in a meaningful way, I don't exactly remember. The only memory I have growing up about communion was, playing with the little glass cups with my sisters and trying to suck the grape juice out of it, in the pew, and really, and clearly not having a very robust, when we were kids, but, not having a very robust or reverent understanding about this tradition. And one of the things I've been privileged to be working through here in New York with our group of churches is that we find ourselves with lots of different backgrounds of people, and lots of different, even the pastors themselves of our parishes here at Trinity Grace have very varied backgrounds, and some grew up in Latin American Pentecostal culture, others grew up in Southern Baptist, others grew up in something approaching Anglican, others Presbyterian, and so forth. And everybody has a slightly different take on what this sacrament is, okay? And that's been one of the stories in the church since the beginning, and certainly has a lot to do with the Reformation, is what are we doing here with this communion? And I came across a book, as I've been sort of personally really intrigued and struggling in a good sense to try to understand and experience this aspect of the Christian walk. I came across a book by N.T. Wright, the Anglican bishop, who masterfully tells the story in a really artful way in a book called The Meal That Jesus Gave Us, which I highly recommend. He writes it, I think, originally for like a high school student, but he's such a genius. It's just readable for someone like me. And he just beautifully lays out the importance, the sort of reverent history of this amazing mystery. And he does it in such a way where he doesn't necessarily take a stance, and that was something that I felt. If we're going to talk about the Eucharist with music here, if we're going to sing songs about this great mystery, which for some people is something that is very contentious, in their faith, that I just felt that I want to look at this as a unifying act among churches, as a unifying act among denominations and various groups of the Christian church, capital C. And music has always had a way of kind of tying people together. So it's a lot there, but it was mysterious. Things like this make for great fodder when it comes to poetry and music. So that's kind of the route.
And it's kind of like that whole scenario is just kind of dark if you think about it, because he's knowing that he's in his last meal with his best friends, knowing that one of them's about to betray him, and it's just crazy when you think about that whole story.
I think you nailed it, because it'll be out in a few weeks, but the title track, the name of the album is called Suddenly, and the title track, which is track 8, is meant to be a sort of play acting of Jesus before going to the cross. Really him in the Garden of Gethsemane, and asking the question, really, like, God, will you take this cup from me? And I've, this project has always been about asking the hard questions and like the psalmist, sort of laying it all out there before God. And I was so struck that we have as a precedent Jesus Christ, the image of God, the scripture says. Even he, in some mysterious way that we can't fully understand, is struggling to accept God's will.
Yeah.
And like, it's just so heavy. I think it's just really something to wrestle with. So, you'll hear it when the record comes out, but that song is very intense, and I hope does some good work at sort of like peering into that great conversation.
I see that you're touring for the first time. How was that experience?
Yeah, we just got started. We're actually leave tomorrow morning for another string of shows in Virginia. We played in Dallas this past weekend, and we had such a beautiful time. It's the first real kind of big performance we've done where we really advertised it, and where we've not been in New York. And we were so blown away by the response and the people that came out of all ages, and it was such a delight. And so I felt the band was super encouraged, and they played great, and we felt like, and we got to play in like a 90-year-old huge cathedral church, and it felt like what we'd been sort of trying to find in the studio all these years was sort of being realized in the air. So we're excited.
How do you pick songs? I mean, you've gone this long without touring, and now you have to pick songs to play at a kind of a 60-minute show or whatever. How do you do that?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, we made the show about an hour and a half.
Okay.
We stretched it a little longer than we might normally. So we're playing for a while, and it was really brutal. I've been in so many bands where your songs all kind of stink, and you really only have 3 good songs anyway, And so we're really honored that like these songs are really special to us and to others. And I sent out a few messages online just to ask folks what they might like to hear, and I think every song was thrown out there, which is about 40. And we obviously can't do that, but there were some consistent ones that people landed on, and I tried to really listen to what people were hopeful to hear. So the great thing is, and these songs, I think, in various contexts, will always have some life.
That's awesome, man. How can people find out more about Young Oceans that may have never heard of you or would like to find out more about you?
Sure. Man, they can pretty much go anywhere. Obviously, just search Young Oceans online. Our website is youngoceans.com. Facebook is pretty active right now with updates and stories and videos. The usual outlets, iTunes, Spotify, and everywhere in between. And Instagram on Instagram, which is more kind of like an arty kind of thing at this point. I try not to advertise too much there, and Twitter, the whole deal. So we're out there.
Sweet, man. Thank you so much for your time, man. I enjoy the tour and looking forward to hearing the album.
Gabe, thank you so much, man. We're honored to chat with you guys. Appreciate it.
No problems. That was my interview with Young Oceans, Eric Marshall. I'd really like to thank Eric for taking up the time and talking about this new record and kind of talking about, just getting started and connecting with people over the years and just kind of seeing that come to fruition now, even as they're beginning to tour. That's got to be cool for a band that has kind of been around a while and they're just now getting the chance to go out on the road. It's got to be kind of fun to do that. If they do come somewhere near you, I would really encourage you to go check them out. And again, check them out on pledgemusic.com and help support their new project. And I know that they'll greatly appreciate that. And check them out on their various social media platforms. That would be a great way to get connected. This is kind of the part of the podcast where I just kind of talk about what's on my heart. Earlier this week, we kind of woke up to another horrifying incident in the United States. And this time it was in Las Vegas. And this is, in the course of my life, when I was in high school, we had 9/11. Earlier before that, we had the Oklahoma City bombing. And then, of course, more recently, we had Virginia Tech and the Orlando shootings, and now this. And that's just, that's just to name a few. I've barely even hit the tip of the iceberg there. There's a lot of tragedies that are going on in the world. Through violence, through Mother Nature. Puerto Rico has just been devastated by a hurricane. And this is the time where we need to come together as believers and show people the face of love. We don't get a whole lot of opportunities sometimes to find things in common with other people. We're a diverse country, and there's a lot of diverse things. But the one thing that we should be able to unite upon is compassion for those that are hurting. We should be able to put our hands in the hands of others and unite, just to fight whatever's going on, whether it be violence, whether that be just hurt, heartache, hunger, devastation. This is our chance to show Christ's love to others. And I don't mean this in a way that's I don't mean this in a way that's exploiting it, but I mean this in a way where this is something that we should be doing anyway, but because of the heightened situation, it just seems like it's the obvious thing to do. And it's really hard to figure out a way to get started, to get involved, because it's just so overwhelming. You don't know where to start. But I would just encourage you, go to your pastor, go to some area community charities, organizations that are in the trenches, that are there, that are connected with other ministries that might be on the ground in Puerto Rico, that might be on the ground in Las Vegas. Just practically being able to find ways to minister to people. That doesn't mean you have to get in a plane and go yourself. This is a way that, just giving some money so that people can have water to drink. That's a practical way of serving. And I just really encourage you guys to find an avenue to do that. Just pray about it, but not just pray, but actually go out and actually do some research, and find ways to get involved, and Find the best ministry. Find something that just kind of strikes your heart, and do it. Don't just wait. Do it. We talked about the holidays approaching. This is going to be a tough holiday season for a lot of people that have lost people. This is a way that you can put your arm around somebody, even if it's not directly doing that. Doing something as simple as buying water for somebody is showing the love of Christ, and I would just encourage you to do that. Hey guys, that's pretty much this episode. We just really like to thank you guys for joining us. You can check us out on Facebook, the Decent Christian Talk page, and there's also a discussion group, Decent Christian Talk Podcast. You can check us out on Twitter, DC Talk Act 2. That's DC Talk Act and the number 2. We're on Instagram, DC Talk Podcast. We're on Snapchat, DCT Podcast. We have a website, decentchristiantalk.com, where you can give us your email address on there, and every time we post something, you will get a notification in the mail letting you know what we are doing. And hey, little announcement before we talk about episode number 50. I am actually going to be heading down to Nashville to go see the Kevin Max show. So if you're headed down that way, there's a Christmas show that he does every year that we kind of talked about on this show that we had with him earlier in the year. You can check that out in the archives. But you can hang out with us if you'd like, if you're headed down there. We'd really like to connect with you. Some of the things that we've gotten to do over the past year connecting with some fans has been really cool. It's really good to hear from you guys, and we just appreciate the feedback. We're on iTunes. You can go out there and subscribe to us on there. Give us a nice review if you can. We're on YouTube. We're still on SoundCloud for now. And yes, episode number 50 is coming up next. It's in 2 weeks from today, and it is going to feature none other than the bearded man himself, David Crowder. We're so excited to bring you this. This is an interview that we have been chasing for a while, and we finally have it, and we're excited to bring it for you guys. So check that out in 2 weeks. Make sure you share this podcast with a friend. For those of you that might be that might know some David Crowder fans, definitely spread the word. We'd really like this podcast to be a pretty big one. But hey, we will catch you next time. Peace.
Don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses. Thanks.